This is the Business Storytelling Show, a top global marketing podcast listened to in more than 100 countries, live streamed on social media, and broadcast on DBTV. Christoph Trapp chats with industry leaders to help your company tell better business stories. Here's today's episode.
Let's go, business storytellers. How's everyone doing? I'm Christoph Trapp, your host. Now, first of all, before we get started here, just a friendly reminder that you can leave reviews of this podcast on all the major podcast channels. Apple, you can actually leave a review. Spotify, you can leave a star rating. So I really appreciate that as well. And of course, on Amazon, you can also leave a review right now. This is the latest. I believe it came from Apple Podcasts. Listen on Apple Podcasts. Great topics and interviews. 5 stars, short and to the point. That sounds good to me. Why not? But make sure that you do that if you're interested in supporting the show and helping us grow. Always appreciate everyone making the time. Today, we want to talk about where should content strategy actually sit in a company? Should it sit in marketing? Should it sit on its own? Should it sit under sales? No. We'll find out. From Fleur Willemijn van Beinum. She's based in the Netherlands and also runs thinklikeapublisher.com. So really excited to dive into that topic with her on today's episode. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate you making the time. So tell me about, why is that such an important topic, where content should sit in a company?
Fair question. Usually content is situated within the marketing department. And what you're seeing is, due to the KPIs from a marketing department, that content is focused on the more short term, on the more conversion performance side of marketing and storytelling. And in my humble opinion, content really should attribute to the brand via storytelling, via brand building, and then followed up with conversion and performance. And if you put it in the marketing department, by default, it will run on the marketing strategy and the marketing KPIs. And I think you're missing out on opportunities as well for production, for distribution, for co-creation, for efficiency in production. So it's, there are several reasons why I think it shouldn't be in content or in marketing.
You know, what's interesting to me about that answer is that all those things you mentioned on content on its own, they're also, if you really truly think about it, you could make the case that they're marketing metrics, right? But unfortunately, driving brand awareness, getting people to pay attention to you. I've had a CEO say to me, I actually said, I don't want to be in sales, but I'm really good at getting you to pay attention to me. And then sales can close the deal or do whatever. And ultimately, that's what marketing is, right? To get people to pay attention to you, consider you. But if you really only do the next quarter's marketing KPIs, you're going to miss the long game, right? Is that kind of the difference? Content strategy, short-term, long-term, midterm, and sometimes marketing strategy is really just like today. What can we do today?
Yeah, and it's true. Marketing is more short-term, more conversion. If you look into the corporate comms department or the PR department, that's really on building the brand, why your brand does what it does, your values, your mission, your vision, your license to operate. And all those elements really define who you are as a brand and why people should buy your products. And that more softer side of storytelling and of your marketing isn't displayed in the marketing department, because the marketing department currently is so focused on KPIs and so focused on getting the sales in and getting the performance in, that the whole part of brand building is a little bit left out and more dedicated towards the corporate comms department. And in the same time, at least speaking for Europe, with the shortage of staff, the recruitment department, the HR department, they're also telling a brand story, and they're also trying to sell the company and the brand and its products to talent. So it's you have storytelling within marketing for sales to bring a product to the marketing, which is marketing. You have storytelling within corporate communications and within the PR department, really to showcase who you are. And then you also have it within HR for getting the talent in. So you have at least 3 different places in the organization where you have content needs, and all 3 are doing their own thing. Marketing short term, corporate comms a little bit more long term. Recruitment, honestly, they're quite new to the content game and the brand building game. So it's like they're all doing something with content, and why not combine it? And if you have it just in the marketing silo, we all know how siloed the current organizations are, then I think you're missing out on opportunities.
It's very interesting. And, when you just said that, I had like these flashbacks a little bit here where there's some content teams in a marketing department. They're really just order takers, right? Like, hey, I need this flyer, make it look pretty. Or, hey, I need this article, please write this article without any context or whatever. But what you're saying, you got multiple departments really in a company, HR, marketing, and then what was the other one?
Corporate comms.
Corporate communications, right? All of them are trying to work. They all need content. Why not decentralize it? So how would you do that though? If you decentralize content strategy in a company, would you just have a head of content who then is like a peer to the VP of marketing and to head of HR?
Yeah, I would say in an ideal world, you have content within its own department with the sole objective to produce the best content possible for your audience. So not for the brand, but for your audience, because content only resonates if it adds value to your audience. So if you have it out of the marketing department and other departments, you can really focus on adding value and creating high quality content. But then your marketing department and your corp comms and your HR, they are your stakeholders. So you do involve them in the process, in the decision making, but the sole responsibility and the mandate is within the content department. And I would say put it like a staff department. So if you have like CEO, C-level, then as a staff, you have got content who's serving the business below the board. So marketing, corp comms, and HR. And then you have the staff who is saying, well, we're going to produce it for you, like some kind of internal agency. And the marketing manager, the CMO and the CFO and head of HR and head of corporate comms and the PR manager, they are your stakeholders and they decide what you're going to do. But the final decision is within the head of marketing, head of content.
Sounds good to me. So I'm just trying to kind of visualize what's the size of a company where this could actually work. Is it, I mean, when I'm thinking like these 50 to 200 people companies, maybe not. Does it have to be a company more than 500 employees, or at what level do you see this to be the best model?
Yeah, you can do this for companies like Unilever, Procter & Gamble, but you can also do it on a much smaller scale. Some marketing departments have like 3 or 4 people, or HR also 3 or 4 people. But why not have a head of content with a content producer? Then you're already there. It's more about the structure and the way of thinking than about size. But you do need some budget for a senior content person. But it's the same if you put it within marketing. You can't have a marketing manager crafting a content strategy, because it's a different game and it's a different industry and it's a different way of thinking. A marketeer always thinks about marketing and always thinks about getting the sales in. And a content or head of content always thinks about telling stories and engaging with people and touching their heart and teaching them something and adding value. It's a different mindset. And different mindset is different people.
It is a different mindset. What's interesting to me too is I've had, I couldn't tell you how many discussions, but I've had many discussions over the years where companies would say, oh, we need better content for our marketing and this and that and the other thing. And then they would say, and we also need to tell the the culture story better, right? The HR story.
Yeah.
But nobody ever comes back and says, oh, yeah. The HR department is really tapping into the content team, because I think they never get to, because marketing just holds strong to the content team, right? Because they need them to do whatever they need them to do.
It's like protective. Yeah, and it's to make it a little bit more complicated, I would love to add the customer care department as well. Because customer care, they are, especially the agents who are doing the grindy, the daily work, they are the ones who have the first contact with customers, and they are the ones who know what's in their hearts and their issues and their problems and their complaints. So you really should involve them also as a stakeholder in your content strategy to really check what you're developing from marketing and corporate comms and HR. Is it going to resonate with your audience? And the ones who know your audience the best, that's your customer care department. And well, I've seen over 50 companies. I haven't seen any company where customer care gets the role it deserves, especially with social content, if it's paid or organic, because they are the guys and the girls who have the first point of contact with the customer. So use it and use them, and they know the questions from the audience. So why not get that input and with your content answer their questions? If you know that, for example, they ask a lot of questions about some kind of insurance, make sure you develop a lot of content on a specific type of insurance and push it via your content strategy, really to have less workload on your customer care department. And in the same time, if you know that there are lots of questions on that specific insurance, use that also in your marketing department to improve the marketing for that insurance. Use it in your corporate comms department to really broadcast the message. Well, guys, we're really listening to our audience and putting the customer first. See, here's the case. And for your HR department, you can use it for, guys, really, this is the way we work and these are our values, and join the team. So you can use it in the widest range. And the good thing is, if you put content like a staff department, you're not siloed. And they can dip into every department and get their input and use it to advantage of all the other silos. At least that's what I think. And it's such a missed opportunity.
It really does sound like a missed opportunity, especially when we think about, it's so much cheaper to keep a client than to find a new client, right? So why are we not actually implementing a bow tie funnel, right? So it's not just the traditional marketing funnel, get people in the door, but actually also keep them in the house after the fact. Now, so let's say we have this set up. So, content marketing, head of content, they're their own department, and they support everybody: marketing, customer care, HR, who knows who else, executive offices. And how do they actually end up prioritizing? What should the guidelines be, right? I mean, I can see, so for example, when sales, right? Say, I know old school salespeople, we'll call it that. And when they always think everything has to come now to them. They're always first, because we can directly measure the revenue that comes in from this one piece of content. Give me a break. But anyway, different discussion, different topic. But how do you prioritize when you have all these different departments coming to you?
Yeah, it's a very valid question, and an honest answer is it depends. It really depends on the brand, on the maturity of the company, on their objectives, their business objectives, their issues in the market, their strategy. Where do you want to grow? Where do you need to grow? What are your competitors doing? So there's no crystal clear answer, one size fits all. You should go in that direction or that direction. The least thing you should do is to make a diagram or a little tree diagram with your topics. What are the topics that matter the most? For example, you've got sustainability, you've got innovation, and you've got people or values or stories. And then you're going to divide how much content you're producing on each of those 3 pillars. Is that 33, 33, 33, or sustainably so important that you're saying, well, 60%, 6 in 10 out of my posts are going on sustainability, and 2 and 2 on the others? That's something you have to decide in line with your brand strategy and with your growth strategy. If you know you really have to claim the domain on sustainability, then you're going to lean more into sustainability. But if you know you've really got to vamp it up on innovation, then you're saying, well, innovation is getting 60% or maybe even 70 or 80%. So it really depends what gets prioritized. And that's in line with your brand strategy, and not just one clear answer, go left or go right, because it depends.
It depends, and you do certainly have to prioritize. Now, the other thing that when you were talking that came to my mind is not every content project is the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
some things you might be able to crank them out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Some might take longer. Here's the other thing, some might take some strategy, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
what are your tips? But to this specific problem, but I see people sometimes they just come by and say, I need this, and you don't
Mm-hmm.
even know why they need it, what's
Yeah.
the point of it,
Yeah.
like what is it supposed to accomplish. They just
Yeah.
have this crazy idea. So how do you make sure before you ever start, you actually start correctly and on the correct thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's for me, I honestly go for coffee with these persons and really tap into their needs. Is it just check the box, I want to have an Instagram post or a threads campaign or whatever? Then I'm not the right person for that company, because I'm there really to move the needle and really to add value on the long term. If you want to have a short term check the box, I've got a Facebook campaign or a Meta campaign, well, yeah, go ahead and you can hire any agency, but nothing is going to happen. And you really have to know the reasons why a brand wants to invest in content, and also just to check how are they going to measure the success. Is that a vanity metric like reach or likes or comments or shares? Or is it more on the long term that you're going to make a graph over 3 years or over 5 years? What is our overall sales? And when did we start with content? When did we start with brand building? When did we start with retargeting? When did we set up the team? When did we vamp up our paid budget? When did we get the new agency? When did we get the new hires? So you're really going to plot your content efforts towards the overall general sales. And yeah, if a brand is open to that, it's fantastic. But if they're just saying, well, I want to have a campaign, well, yeah, then I'm not your girl. Then I'm not a designated person. Just go to an agency on the corner and good luck with it.
Do you think that's, I mean, there's certainly a lot of people who say content strategy doesn't work, and I think they're totally wrong, because it does work. We see many companies who've made it work, but you do have to follow a process, right?
Yes.
You can't just milli vanilli do something. And do you think part of the problem is because companies have these check the box campaigns, because somebody said, hey, we need to be on TikTok. So they go on TikTok and they don't do anything that's worthwhile or that does anything. Is that the problem? And if it is, how do we move away from that?
I don't know if people like my answer, but I think it's egos, and especially egos in the board, that they heard something about it, but they don't really dare to admit they don't know. And maybe they're also a little bit afraid of the young hipsters and millennials who are super fast, but didn't get the seniority and the strategic overview. So it's what I have seen is a lot of old white people saying that they want to change, but they don't dare to change. And then their ego gets stuck in the way. And that's also, I think, in most cases, why the marketing department doesn't let go the content piece, because content is sexy and content is what wins awards and content is what makes you shine. So why should you let that go out of your department and have it its own department? Because then as a CMO, it's more difficult to shine. But it's a tough answer, but that's what I see in the market. And we're still working in silos. And we're also focused on our own KPIs instead of the overall general KPI of the business objective, keeping the business afloat and making money. There's nothing wrong with making money, but as long as each department has its own KPIs, then departments will operate on their own KPIs. And if you can zoom out and have an overarching view on everything we're doing, how is it contributing to the business in general, in sales, in numbers, in revenue, then you're having a whole different discussion. But the way companies are organized, it's setting up for siloed structures.
It's just unbelievable to me what you mentioned about marketing wants to keep content because content wins awards. I mean, that should not be the only reason to do that. Really briefly, I want to share with you, behind me here, you can see I got this little plane behind me, and you can order that directly on Amazon. Everything else, if you scan my Amazon store link up here in the top, you can find everything that I'm offering, or not offering, but recommending on Amazon. So check that out. In the last couple minutes here, really appreciate you coming on the show. Let's talk about Think Like a Publisher a little bit, for about 90 seconds total. Think Like a Publisher, and then also who reaches out to you? Who are your perfect clients? I think we got some of that already, and certainly I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, it's my perfect client is CEO, CFO, or CMO who really wants to take the next step and dares to be different and dares to think different, who dares to think like a publisher, to really set up your own exposure as a brand, from brand building up to retargeting and conversion, because in the end you have to get sales. I think like a publisher, it's like my hobby project. I'm super passionate about content and writing and sharing everything, and I'm crafting everything myself, the writing, the visuals, everything. So I don't only do strategy, I'm also in execution. So I really know what I'm talking about, and checking all the data and using it to create new content or reuse it and republish it.
Thanks for tuning in. Please rate and review the Business Storytelling Show on your favorite podcast platform, and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.